So I've gotten another response to one of the videos I made about God and religion and Christ. These are words that seem to really get people's attention. And this was another critical video from the dentist 27, and I took some notes. He said that he didn't think religion was the result of passion, as I had argued, but the result of despair. And passion is etymologically it means suffering. So we talk about the passion of Christ. That's, in other words, um, the suffering that Christ went through. um, so the despair and passion are very similar, though I think passion also has an element of um, heartfelt self-sacrifice. So, think of the word compassion. um, to suffer with, or you know, usually compassion is a kind of love. So I don't necessarily disagree that religion is the result of despair. Yeah, despair. We could even look at that word and say that um, it refers to the outbreath, and that is associated with death. And religion is certainly a response to death. Um, so on that point, I kind of agree with you. Um, then you started talking about immortality and how if we all are immortal, then that would mean that we would take this life less seriously because it didn't matter anyways. Um, but I would say if what happens in this life that we each, and all the rest of us live on this earth, if what happens now becomes eternal when we die, um, then it's that much more significant in the sense that it's never going to go away. Um, it lasts forever, and I wouldn't want to say that there's some sort of soul separate from my body that lives forever after the body decomposes, but I would want to say that there is some kind of reincarnation, that the various subjective elements that make up my body, and not just the physical body here, but all of the phylogenetic memories, the biological inheritances, which have made this body into the form that it currently exists as. All of that is inherited, and just as I receive that package from the past. When I die, I'm sending the package forward into the future, and so what I do, how I live, the kind of life that I lead is going to be somehow reincarnated. And again, it's not as though I think there's some individual essence, like that my personality is going to survive the death of my body, but um, there is some subjective, um, a collection perhaps of subjective elements that I do think will live on. And so in that sense, I think we are immortal. Um, and then you started to talk about dogmas, and that you said that I had implied that they require respect, and I didn't exactly say that. I said that we ought to um, at least give them an ear. We shouldn't take anything on authority, but we should respect authority. That it doesn't mean you can't question authority. It just means you sort of give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, in saying this, I'm not trying to defend any particular um, religious doctrine. Whether it's of um, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, whatever. I'm not trying to say that, I'm not naming a specific dogma that we ought to respect, because, obviously different religions have contradicting dogmas, at least on the surface of it. Um, And I'm not trying to resolve these contradictions. Um, they're certainly there, though I wouldn't say, it's too easy to think of something like Christianity in general and assume that various individual Christians or even individual churches um, hold to the same doctrines. There are subtle differences and sometimes large differences within what we would call Christianity. Well, same goes for Buddhism and Islam and any other religion. There are always subtle differences in the dogmas. Um, what else did you bring up? The reason I say that religion is necessary um, is that I think it's a fundamental question that we have to ask. That question being, how is the human being to relate to the universe? Um, and not just relate to it, but relate to it morally, because I don't think we can avoid that. In our current culture, at least the dominant paradigm of our culture, it's basically materialist, and so we see the earth as a collection of resources for us to extract and produce and sell within the human economy. We don't recognize any value inherent to the natural world. We see value as something attributed to it from the outside by human ingenuity, um, and that's a moral attitude that we've taken towards the earth. I would personally prefer if I would prefer we didn't take that sort of attitude to the earth and instead saw it as a community of other beings that we exist among and that require our respect. They have other organisms have rights, not rights equivalent to human rights, but as Thomas Berry puts it, trees have tree rights, raccoons have raccoon rights, a river has river rights, and these things have to be intuitively expressed in their own special ways. We can't just use the human being as the model for the rights of nature. Nature, different elements of nature have to have their own specific types of rights, but you can see what I'm getting at here. We have to relate to the universe in a moral way, and whether that way is to see nature as something sacred, or it's to see it as just a collection of resources, that's still a moral relationship. So we have to come to terms with the universe in that way, and religion is one way of doing that. Um, and I would say that materialism, or um, let's say the economics associated with materialism and consumerism and capitalism and so forth, that is a religious, it pretends to be non-ideological, but it's very much a religious a religious way of being in the world. And the reason I maintain that we can't avoid religion is because I want to combat that religious outlook, the religious outlook of materialism, with something more ecologically sustainable for one thing, but also more of a spiritual outlook at the end of the day. Um, you also mentioned science and progress, which is another, I would argue, a form of religion, and it's in some forms I would ascribe to it as well, though I don't go all the way with it, because I don't think that technological advancement is unambiguously good. Sometimes technologies can put our civilization into dire straits, and we would have been better off not even going down that road at all. So technology is something that we need moral responsibility to know how to use. So I'm out of time, but thanks for listening. Thanks for your response.